Okay, welcome everybody. This is our Soul Path Wisdom community, and our class today is Pluto's last dance in Capricorn. This is the retrograde back of Pluto as of September 1st, just be really in the last degree of Capricorn, then it will go direct and it will be fully in Aquarius as of the 19th. And I thought this would be a really great time to sit back and say, what have we learned? Because when we're in that very last degree of a sign, as we know, the Adirantic degree, there's a lot of focus. And sometimes there's kind of a negative perspective that we are going to have difficult experiences. But the difficult experiences come if we have not fully integrated everything that we're meant to learn. And there's kind of like a catch-up phase where it's like cramming for the final exam. So we could say that the final exam of Pluto in Capricorn is November 19th. And off we go then at that point into a new curriculum. Some of this I know, of course, is going to be major review for some of you. And you may even recognize some of the same slides that I've done in deeper presentations about, the overall of what Pluto going into Aquarius is going to represent. But today what I wanted to do was to focus on just Pluto and Capricorn and have us go back and review all it's about, how long it's been going on. And specifically, I'm going to ask each one of you to look at your own charts and do a deep dive into what your exploration of the shadow, your personal shadow, has been about. So, the urge for evolutionary transformation of psychological wound patterns into true power. Like, what actually does that even mean, right? It's like, remember, every planet is a part of ourselves, and Pluto seeks to transform wounding. And that wounding we're carrying is coming from our past lives, and it lives in our aura as energy. And that energy is buried emotion. So when we talk about Pluto, we're always talking about the shadow, and we're talking about fears and intense feelings that we don't want to face. But at a higher level, Pluto represents our personal desire to evolve, connected to our generational destiny. So the sign your Pluto is in connects you to a whole group of individuals, and you, as part of that soul pod, are here to do a particular thing, to expose certain kinds of corruption and problems, and to build and transform something new. Now, Pluto takes about 248 years to travel around the sun. That means that in any person's individual chart, at best, it usually gets about halfway around the chart, if you live long enough. But it's you can't possibly experience it transforming all of the parts of you. It takes 11 to 32 years in a sign, because it has an elliptical orbit, right? So it's sort of a flat oval. So there'll be times when it's really fast in certain signs and times when it's very, very long. The key Pluto transits we go through, probably the most intense one in my mind is that we all go through in about the same time, like a Saturn return. Saturn comes back to where it was when we're born in the late 20s. Pluto square Pluto at this point is happening in the late 30s, maybe into the early 40s for some people at this point. When I went through mine decades ago, it was definitely around 36, 37, and talk about a dark night of the soul, because your natal Pluto and its goals and urges, and then Pluto, where it is in the sky, the house and the sign that it's in that moment in your chart, they are stressed with each other, and you're having to make choices that are soul centered. And because Pluto represents death and rebirth, And sometimes that's physical death, but most often it's kind of psychological ego death. There's a tendency for us when we're in an intense Pluto transit, especially Pluto square Pluto, to feel like we're going to die if we don't make the right choice. I mean, it really feels like life and death on the line to make some choice. And hopefully, we respond well. Pluto is not like a Jupiter transit. Jupiter transit comes and offers you an opportunity and moves on. Take it or leave it. Jupiter doesn't care. Pluto cares. Pluto wants you to transform deeply, to excavate what's hidden. And so you will be sort of steamrollered over and over again. And the fact that Pluto square Pluto used to be when a person was in their 80s tells us something about the intensity of it too, because when you're in your 80s, there's a very good chance that major people around you that you love are dying or have died. A lot of people feel they sort of end up alone. Maybe your spouse of many years has died. Most likely you've got some health issues. At a minimum, you're tight and creaky, but perhaps, you're really facing diseases. And you've had to give up work most likely as well. So whatever your identity was is no longer there. So think about all of that sort of intensity of losing everything in order to be the wise elder, and see that this has been happening now for some decades in the late 30s. What it does is it gives us a whole population of people who are wise elders at a very young age. Pluto opposite Pluto is what currently happens in the 80s. And so that too is a time of reconciliation, of looking at the shadow, the oppositional energies of where your Pluto is, and looking at integrating that. And this is what's coming up next for baby boomers, because as Pluto goes into Aquarius, baby boomers all have Pluto in Leo. So there will be this time period for the next 20 years where all baby boomers are facing an opposition of Pluto opposite Pluto, and having to reconcile the aging process and power and the release of power, and becoming more authentic and free, and giving up whatever Leo identity that one had. And then, of course, those are transits that happen to everybody at about the same age. But at any given point, you can have Pluto conjunct your sun or Pluto square your moon. Wherever it is, it's about a 3-year transit, and undoubtedly you will feel it. And so you'll feel yourself doing individual group, soul group work. You'll be doing sacred generational healing and tasks. We can call this shadow work, going into what is hidden in the unconscious, in the psyche. It's all about transformation and coming into integrity, real power, and regenerating. And there's also a great level of honesty that comes with healthy Pluto. Now here's your picture of someone digging, because there's so much of Pluto that's digging below the surface. You're exposing corrupted energies and circumstances in your life. You're digging deep to uncover the root causes. This disowned or feared material that's in the shadow is often projected onto others. So when we, dislike other people because we think they're unconscious or mean or whatever idea we have about them, there's a very good chance that we don't want to face our own disowned material. And again, Pluto takes us to honesty, sometimes ruthless honesty. Sometimes when we're really scorpionic or plutonic, we have to dial it back a little bit because it's too much. So our wounding gets transmuted into true power, and we have to be careful that we don't operate as control and manipulation. And again, death and rebirth. We are dying to the ego self, the ego wounded self, and we're being reborn as a new person. So your Pluto key questions will be things like, what defense mechanisms am I ready to evolve? So your defense mechanisms, the ways that you protect your tender little inner self. So looking at those are really important, those patterns. Uh, Usually people tell us about those patterns. Why do you always blah, blah, blah? Why do you always shut down and walk away when we're talking about something difficult? But Pluto also takes us out, like, where can I make a difference in the world? Because it is about that level of destiny. And what is the true purpose of this life? This life in general for all, your life. What do you believe about that? Pluto will take you into that. Where am I caught in fear and subconscious motivations? The fears of Pluto don't make any sense. And kids, small children with intense Pluto or intense Scorpio, they will be afraid of a lot of things. They will, the parents might take them to a therapist when they're 5 because they've got these horrid nightmare sort of dreams and fears. And there's no reason in their current life for them to have this. And then, of course, we have to look at, can I face fear and painful emotions fiercely? And that's always one of my advices to people around Pluto work is do the thing that scares you. Feel the feeling that you don't want to feel. Go into it instead of running away from it. And this will be part of how you can dismantle unconscious disempowering patterns, because our disempowering patterns are usually rooted in fear. I don't want to appear too much. I don't want to fail. I can't handle the shame of people finding out that I'm not as smart as I pretend to be. Like, these are some of the kinds of unconscious patterns people will have. And then we come into this death place. What needs to die in my life so I can be reborn? I often refer to Pluto in a session to people as a dragon sitting on a pot of gold. And that dragon is made up of all of these intense emotions, and you have to eat them. You basically have to eat the dragon, digest it, and you get to your own personal pot of gold, your great power, your destiny, why you're here. It can be as simple as raising a family and living a good, healthy life. It can be bigger out there in the world doing something. It can be your own creativity. There's so many ways that we come to our own pot of gold. When we are connected to our conscious Pluto, we do the things that scare us. We do the psychological shadow work. We face the truth. We have integrity. We transform the wounds. We develop the power. But the unconscious Pluto, and you'll see it in many, many people around you, unexamined emotions, especially fear, pain, shame, and rage. Those are like the big Plutos. Accidents and illnesses, violence, power struggles, impossible situations, conspiracies and distrust. These energies will be coming forward strongly out of unevolved Pluto energies. Now, Pluto came into Capricorn in 2008, and you will remember that this is when 2008, 2009, we had this major financial breakdown. Remember, banks that were supposedly too big to fail, government rescue. It was the breakdown of the structure and the exposure of the corruption in our big institutions. Big pharma, big education, big medicine, the government and the way that it's tied in with the financial organizations. So we saw that, and, there was a level that, certainly did seem to be true. Like, there needed to be some kind of help at that point in time for people. Unfortunately, is really a mixed bag in my mind, but that's the nature of Pluto. It's not all going to happen at once. In fact, what I would say is that in a Pluto transit in a sign, usually right at the beginning, we see the whole curriculum and things are very intense for the first 10 degrees of that sign. Then the middle is just really the chaos. It's like it's overwhelming. We're trying to fix it. We know what the problem is now. And then the last 10 degrees, we are fixing things. As I've said before in some talks, it seemed to me like we're just spending the whole 2008 to 2024 constantly exposed to the corruptions, seeing the problems, more and more problems. I'm not sure we've really come to the solutions yet, but I'm hopeful Pluto in Aquarius is bringing us solutions. So yes, what Pluto in Aquarius is supposed to bring us is humanitarian agendas, associations, community connection, the people, technology, astrology, innovation. And we'll have to look at where the corruption is around Aquarian issues. Where's the corruption around humanitarian agendas? We know that many times they're messed up with politics. What's dead and decayed? Uh, in terms of technology, from the minute Pluto first dashed a little into Aquarius, we saw that AI is already way out of control. And there's a lot of very important fears that people have. Now, the new paradigm rising out of the ashes of Capricorn is going to be that, we will now deal in a deeper way with climate change, maybe the falling apart of the royal family in the UK, a US female president, which is quite possible at this point. We've seen Brexit and the social justice issues. We've seen in these last years gender and sexuality expression open up to a whole new level of choice. We've seen all the problems we have with systemic policing, the wars, the refugees everywhere, capitalism, fascism, extraterrestrials. These are all the issues that have been coming out of Pluto and Capricorn. And now Pluto in Aquarius, I believe we're meant to solve them in new and innovative ways. Now, when you want to look at conscious Pluto in your own life, look, of course, at the sign your natal Pluto is in, the house it's in, and its aspects to your personal planets. That's your Pluto signature, we'll call it. So I want each one of you right now to just take a moment to think about that for a minute. What sign is your Pluto in? What house is it in natally? Do you remember what planets it's connected to? Whether it's a hard aspect like a square or quincunx, or it's a nice little flow of a trine or a sextile. I always say that it doesn't matter whether it's a soft or hard aspect with Pluto. Pluto aspects are intense. It may be easier to heal the soft aspects than the hard, but you'll still need to heal the connection between the Pluto and the planet. So this is the marching orders at the core of your karma for this life. And bringing about more consciousness to your Pluto elevates you and your life and is deeply satisfying in words that I don't even know what they are in English. It's so far beyond contentment or happiness, but it's a deep soul-centered rightness that when you're manifesting your Pluto correctly, you can feel that. But then Pluto in Capricorn, all these years has moved, from where it started to where it's ending. That's probably in 2 different houses for you. Maybe it can be even 3. Occasionally, if you've got an intercepted house and the whole sign of Capricorn is in one house, you've just been dealing with it in one area of life. Now here's your Pluto generations in signs in case you don't know exactly where yours is. This tells you your generation according to the astrology, which I would believe is more accurate than the sociologists who somehow kind of get a little muddled between the crossovers. Um, mhm. And so here we are in this last dance with a lot of intensity. And what we can do now is do some work. We can go into a little meditation, visualization, and connect into Pluto. Here's what I'm going to have you do. Of course, we'll do it together. Is evaluate your natal Pluto potential and generational theme. Analyze the Pluto in Capricorn transit since 2008. Consider what you've been building and what shadow material have you worked on so that you can have a little agenda, a little sense of what maybe you want to work on in this next, at this point, it's about 2 months, right? This is mid-September. So I'm going to have you close your eyes right now if you want to do this. And take some slow, deep breaths. As you breathe, feel your roots drop down from your feet and your grounding cord deep into the earth. Imagine the healing energy of the earth coming up through your roots, coming up through you, rising out the top of your head and going up to the cosmos, the place of source, light. And imagine that you're drawing that light down through you, washing through the central core of your body along the spine, maybe dissolving and melting some of those karmic patterns that are completed now. And this light energy adding to your grounding, flowing along the legs and the grounding cord, flowing down the roots. As you continue to breathe, bring your attention to the heart and imagine these two energies, earth and cosmos, mixing and the energy spreading through the body. Filling you up from the core to the skin. And then spreading out into the aura, 3 feet or a meter all the way around you. Feel a strong boundary edge on the outside. Gold, silver, copper, usually a metallic boundary is particularly strong. Feel yourself centered and rested in this bubble of light. Now, And take a moment to consider your Pluto and the sign and house it's in. Pluto representing power, soul purpose, in the way of the sign, connected to all the themes of your particular sign. And thinking about the fact that your generation was here to expose corruption in these areas of life, but also to build something good, powerful, soul-centered in these areas of life. Now take a moment to think about the transit of Pluto, the houses it's been in, so the areas of life that have been broken down and rebuilt, rising from the ashes, maybe in those areas. And also, if you had planets or key points or angles in Capricorn, let yourself remember the changes that happened as Pluto was going through those areas. What shadow material have you been working on? What painful lessons have come up? Do you feel like you have transformed in these areas, or is there still more to do? Take a moment to imagine a violet flame like a torch, burning away the last remnants of your dysfunctional Pluto, ways that you feel wounded in your power, not good enough, fearful. Maybe you'll find some angry energy hidden in your body. You just scan your body from head to toe, looking for wounds and imagining that this violet flame burns those old energies. And now fill the space. If you've burned energy, it leaves a vacuum. And imagine either the energy of your soul seemingly coming from over the head or pure golden light of power pouring in and filling up the spaces. Imagine that you're breathing into a powerful expression of your soul energy. Feel a connection to all the souls in your generational group. Everybody who has Pluto in your sign, feel the circle of connection around the world, supporting each other to true conscious power. Trusting that at this major shift point on this planet, that we can work together, each embodying our own special gifts together as a working group defined by Pluto in a sign, doing our part of the puzzle, allowing the other generational groups to step forward and do their parts of the puzzle. And imagine us working in harmony. Bringing this earth from death and destruction and the fears that we have about life on this planet, and moving toward powerful solutions, soul-centered solutions and connection. Feel yourself in this deep, fearless, powerful place as much as you can cultivate it. When you're ready, you can open your eyes.